and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. In this week's episode, I've come to Leeds in Yorkshire to take a look at the 7.5 mile long M621 motorway. Despite its short length, it somehow manages to cram in 7 junctions, and the story of how this motorway came to be is quite a fascinating one. For you see, the M621 is the bastard child of the M62 and the M1 motorways. The M621 came about as the result of a larger plan to build inner-city motorways around Leeds, an idea that was dreamt up in the late 60s, early 70s. By this point, the M1 and the M62 motorways had arrived into Leeds, and the City Council fucking loved them. So much so, in fact, that they came up with the idea to style Leeds as the Motorway City of the 70s. Their plan was to build motorways, and then after that, build some more motorways. The plan involved extending the M1 from where it terminated on the southeast side of Leeds and building a new motorway called the South West Urban Motorway extending out from the M62. The extension and new motorway would lead to the south of the city centre, where they'd converge at an interchange before heading directly into the city centre itself. We'll come back to that a little bit later on, but for now the point is this M1 extension and the South West Urban Motorway would become the M621. The M621 then, like a lot of motorways, it was built and opened in sections, with the first section opening in 1973, running from the Gildersome interchange up to Junction 3. But back then, that stretch of motorway was known as the South West Urban Motorway. The M621 wouldn't come until a bit later on. Our first stop is Junction 1, the Beeston interchange, and it's here that we find a hidden tunnel running underneath the motorway. And I don't really know why it's here. If we look at an old map, we can see that it used to be a road before modern life came along and took over the entire area. However, I'm really not sure why they retained the roadway or built the tunnel in the first place. It doesn't seem to serve any purpose. Just before you arrive at Junction 2, you won't miss Elland Road Stadium on your right. It's been home to Leeds United since 1919, and with a capacity of 38,000, it's the 14th largest stadium in the country. Plans are underway to redevelop the West Stand, which will increase the stadium's capacity to 50,000. Leeds United are also known as the Peacocks, and that's because before the stadium was here, football was played on land known as the Old Peacock Ground, which took its name from the pub The Old Peacock, which sat opposite. This would have been around the late 1890s, before Leeds United were a thing, but the pub is still there today. After Junction 2 is where things really start to kick off, with 4 junctions squeezed into a 1.5 mile stretch of motorway.
1, 2, 3, 4.
As we've learned in previous episodes, when constructing motorways, there are certain rules and regulations one has to abide by. And one of those is that you can't build junctions less than 1.5 miles apart. And here we are with 4 of the bastards. Fair play to Leeds City Council though, I've no idea how they managed to get planning permission for that. Junction 2A is a little bit of a half-assed junction that's missing a set of slip roads. I'm not really sure why, probably because of space constraints, and there are other junctions nearby that you can use. Junction 3, however, is a massive windy mess of roads that marks the point at where the M621 was sort of all stitched together. Remember earlier we talked about how the South West Urban Motorway and the M1 would converge before heading into the city centre. Junction 3 was the point at which that was supposed to happen. They ended up cancelling the continuation of the motorway into the city centre, but had Junction 3 been built as planned, here's what it might have looked like. Instead of that rather ambitious design, Junction 3 ended up being built as a roundabout-style junction, with the M1 motorway terminating on one side and the South West Urban Motorway terminating on the other. And if you're thinking, that sounds like a completely stupid idea, it is, but that's what they went with. But it didn't stay like that. Things changed in the 90s when the M1 was rerouted to link up with the A1. As a result of the M1 being rerouted, we were left with a section of the South West Urban Motorway and some leftover M1 bits that needed to be renumbered or reassigned. Junction 3 saw quite a few changes where the 2 motorways were joined together properly, and then the whole stretch was renamed as the M621. However, what that means is when you're driving between Junction 3 and 7 of the M621, you are in fact driving on an old section of the M1 motorway. Moving on to Junction 4, and this was built in the classic trumpet design, and if we think about it in the context of the old M1, it kind of makes sense. It would have trumpeted a lot of the traffic off the motorway before it terminated a little bit further up at Junction 3. The theory is that it avoids long tailbacks of traffic when a motorway ends, but today that's probably a lot less relevant given that the M621 now travels straight through Junction 3. In the old days of motorways, the trumpet design junction was quite commonplace and often found just before motorways terminated. Junction 5 is much like Junction 2A with only 2 slip roads, and you'd be forgiven for missing it completely. However, right next door to Junction 5 is the Middleton Railway. The Middleton Railway is the oldest operating railway in the world, having been founded in 1758. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that makes this small patch of railway in Yorkshire older than the United States. It was originally built to transport coal from the Middleton Colliery, a resource that's been mined in the area since the 13th century. Today it operates as a heritage railway with a 1-mile track and offers passenger services over weekends and bank holidays. You know, usual heritage railway shit. And a nice little feature of the railway is that shortly after departing from the main station, you'll go under the M621 through an 80-metre tunnel. Leaving the railway behind and having rounded a corner on the M621, you'll quickly arrive at Junction 6. This is another junction that's only got 2 slip roads, but in this case it's quite obvious Junction 5 and 6 are supposed to work together in allowing traffic to exit or join the motorway. Between them, they make up one whole junction. I assume it's to send traffic flow in certain directions to avoid congestion on smaller local roads. I also assume it doesn't work. And before you know it, Junction 7 arrives, and this is some proper OG M1 shizzle right here. The M1 was extended from Rugby to Leeds in the mid-60s, and by 1968 it was finished. And it's here that the M1 originally terminated, pretty much at the roundabout that we see today. Here's an old map showing how the junction used to be arranged here when it was the M1. You'll recall earlier in the programme we discussed the extension of the M1 from the southeast side of Leeds up to Junction 3 of the M621. It was from here that it was extended. That's all we've got time for this week then, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there's a button specifically for that. Is this an old viaduct? Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John, you've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.
Now everybody come along with me to Elland Road and sing joyfully. A lot of happy footballers you will see. The pride of the directors and Don Reevy. It's the Leeds United Calypso. Sing it now. Leeds United Calypso. I feel so happy, I feel so fine. The lads at Elland Road are pals of mine.